Attention to the Open Meetings Act posted here in the council chambers. If you would now please join me in rising for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Beth.
Granquist.
Here.
Langy.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Weebelhaus.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
File.
Here.
Look then for a motion to approve the consent agenda with one change. We will be removing number 19 from the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
Next, look for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
Okay, that moves us to the public hearings and related action portion of the agenda. Item number 23 and number 24 will join these hearings, and item number 27 will join these three public hearings to review the City of Norfolk's fiscal year 2019 to 2020 municipal budget, to review the City of Norfolk's fiscal year 2019 to 2020 proprietary budget, water, sewer, solid waste, and stormwater, and to receive comments regarding changing the tax request for the 2019 to 20 fiscal year from the amounts for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. And to kick off the public hearing, Randy and then Andy, I believe. Or Andy. Please start us off.
We'll go with Andy.
Andy.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to bring up a presentation. Here we go. Trying to get mine activated again. Come on. It's not showing up on mine. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to X out of it, and I will bring it back. There we go. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the time of year that we have every year where we consider the appropriations for the following fiscal year. I'm going to do things a little bit differently this year. I'm going to start off with a little bit of an introduction about some of the council goals that I'm pleased to say that we have met and are ongoing, and we're constantly trying to achieve those goals that you've set forth. So we'll review some of those and some highlights. Then I'm going to go through a little bit of a year in review, and then, prior to that, I'm going to go through some of the statistical information. We'll look at some fancy charts and graphs, and just look at some revenue positions, valuations, some of those things you'll see that we've seen in some past presentations with a few new ones. So with that, I'll get right to it, as I know we got a lot to cover on our agenda tonight. But just to cover our council goals, one of the main ones that we've seen on our agenda is for the cash reserve. The city has a reserve of funds that is set aside, call it a rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it. And the GFOA recommends a minimum of 16% for that. And the council has been working towards trying to achieve that by building up those funds each year to year. And I'm pleased to say that with this next fiscal year, the budget you will adopt this evening, we will have achieved that goal for that minimum. So from that point on, we can continue to grow that as you see fit, or put that at the level that you like. So that's something I think we can all be proud of. The council, staff have all worked very hard. Our employees are very good with trying to be conservative with their budgets and to make sure that we can keep building that minimum cash reserve as we go forward. Again, street expansion and maintenance, that's obviously an ongoing one. We don't want to stop doing that. We actually want to do more, and you'll see some of that in the budget coming up for this year to improve some of our maintenance items and expansions, some needed gap paving, some of those things that are continuing to happen. We have done some this last fiscal year, and we'll continue to work on those as needed. Parks and Recreation, a few highlights from that. A trail plan, that's of course ongoing. That's a pretty large plan. So we're constantly trying to meet that. A skate park, that will be a 2020 project, and then Embrace Park, splash pad, and multi-use fields. That's been accomplished over the course of a couple of years with the new restroom, of course, that we're seeing going up right now and hopefully almost finished. Community engagement, city website, we'll be trying to get that done as soon as we can, and hopefully get that released this year. We'd like to this fall, but getting the content uploaded, there's a lot of information to put on there, so that's time consuming, but our staff's working very hard to get that going. But we will premiere that to the city council at a public meeting, and we'll take it to subcommittee and give updates as we move along. So when we have something to show, we'll continue to bring that forward. Community engagement, again, Norfolk Now initiative, that is something that is ongoing. We actually just had a strategic planning meeting today to talk about some items to do with that. Of course, that's a partnership the city has with the Visitors Bureau and the Norfolk Area Chamber of Commerce. And also council work sessions. We're continuing to have those to highlight certain issues and special topics the council might want to discuss more in depth without having to take action necessarily on an item, but just to talk and get some education on some things that are happening. Property maintenance, again, that's something that is ongoing. Economic development, we've got a number of items related to that. Infrastructure development, Northeast Industrial. That is something that, for the bulk of that, we'll have wrapped up yet this year to meet that goal. That is something that's been on the council's economic development plan for a number of years, as well as site ID and master planning. That is something that has been ongoing as well, and we continue to budget funding to do more of that in our area, to try to identify sites for business growth and new industry expansion projects. Having a TIF guiding document, that is currently in the works. There's kind of a draft we've been using. We've presented that to the ED subcommittee, and we're still finalizing that, and I'm sure that's going to be an ongoing one to decide what kind of information we want to include as far as council policies that we want to have set for how we look at tax increment financing in Norfolk. And partnering with the Greater Norfolk Economic Development Foundation. Again, that's ongoing. A pretty significant one is the purchase the foundation did make of some industrial land, which is now under control. It's been annexed, and we're working on some master plan for that. The city council did allocate $300,000 of Keno funds with that acquisition, with the foundation picking up the rest of the cost of that, as well as the cost of the master planning. So that's one that is moving forward. And feel free to stop me at any time, but I know there's a lot to cover tonight. So we'll start with some background information. Here's an overview of our general fund revenue that you'll see. Obviously, you'll see sales tax is the big blue chunk of the pie there. That is our primary source of revenue for our general fund. After that, we have NPPD lease, other revenue, and then we have property tax, which is the smallest share of our combined of our general fund revenue. Total general fund we're looking at is just over $22 million for this next fiscal year. Sales tax, you'll see there's a few bars there that jumped up pretty high. That is for the library, the voter-approved sales tax for the library. Of course, that has gone off now. So you'll see those graphs have restabilized, and we are projecting an increase in sales tax. As you can see, those charts overall have been going up if you go back to 2015. And then you can see where the half-cent sales tax did expire, and that is no longer in place. Nebraska Public Power District lease revenue, again, that's stayed pretty flat for the most part. Rates have not changed, and I don't think they project to do that. There was a change in the way that the city did collect revenue, or when they paid the city the lease payment, which improved our cash position as a city, so we did see an increase, a positive increase to our general fund revenue in that aspect. If the council wants to know more, Randy can fill everybody in on a little more detail on how that works. Assessed valuation. We are, as a community, just over $1.5 billion total valuation, and these incremental percentage increases you'll see from year to year and how that has gone up. Here is an overall view of a $100,000 home, and based on 2018 levy rates for where the City of Norfolk's share of the property tax is a $100,000 home. So you can see there the yellow slices where the City of Norfolk falls in with that. And then you have other taxing entities, the school district, community college in Madison County also. But this is good information to know as we just kind of know where the City of Norfolk stands for our property tax allocation. General fund expenditures by division and function. Obviously, you'll see public safety combined is a pretty significant one of those. Administration is another big one that obviously includes my role, city clerk, finance, billing, all those accounts payable and accounts receivable, all those functions that we provide and those services we provide for the city. Street maintenance. You'll see a newer one for planning and development. That has a piece of the pie now. If you remember, we did separate out the inspections operations from the fire division and included those in with planning and zoning to create the planning and development department. And you'll see parks and recreation. Due to some changes we've made and investments we're making, that share has gone up a little bit from maybe what you've seen in the past, which we can get into a little bit later on. Is there any questions so far? Any of these that I'm showing? Okay. Where we are for our enterprise fund expenditures, and again, this is water, sewer, solid waste, and stormwater. Capital expenditures, you'll see in the gray, that accounts for a vast majority of the funds spent in enterprise fund. Some very costly items for mostly just construction. Operations and maintenance is another big one to make sure that our plants are operating at the best that they possibly can. And then you have personnel and then some debt service depending on the project that we're trying to fund. Year in review. I'm gonna try to zip through this pretty quick. But probably a big one that I want to talk about is our transition to planning and development department. Val Grimes has done a great job and the other staff with our buildings and codes to try to bring this together into City Hall to create that one-stop shop for contractors. I've heard positive feedback as to how that's working, and it seems to be working very, very well to have them located in City Hall. And it's very convenient, I think, for a lot of the other staff too, that we can all talk to each other much easier. Everybody's right down the hallway from each other, and we can all stay on the same page for a lot of the things we're working on. So that's been a tremendous, I think, addition to the city. Website update, again, that's something that has been long overdue for the city. We're still operating on one that dates back quite a number of years. I don't know exactly how long, but we're long overdue for a refreshing website for the city, and hopefully we can roll that out this year. Infrastructure investments, again, one of the council goals was getting up to serve that northeast industrial area. As you can see, it takes quite a bit of investment to make that happen. There is some city cost to that, and there's also some industry costs and assessments that are going to go along with that too. So that number is not all city. That is shared cost among the different funders and different projects that are taking place in our northeast industrial area. Rosh Dam Sewer Interceptor, that was completed this last June for just under $1 million. Gap paving, that is one area where the council has been talking about filling in some of these areas where there is no pavement at all, sidewalks and everything. So North 15th Street and Square Turn are two that we're going to see completed. And so North 15th was actually completed about a year ago, with Square Turn getting started up this year yet. Benjamin Avenue design, that is a pretty significant one with a lot of engineering. The City Council did let that engineering contract out earlier this year, so they are working on the preliminary design and will be continue to move forward on the final design and present concepts as that process lays out. And Prospect Avenue reconstruction, that's happening right now, and it should be completed this year for sure. So that will include sidewalks as part of that project as well, and curb-to-curb replacement. Public safety, a couple of big ones. Aerial fire apparatus, which is a new fire truck that has been put into service, and then a new ambulance as well that we've provided. And everybody and the staff are very thankful for the council's investments in our operations. And again, this is something we really couldn't provide these services to the city without your support. Economic development, Business Park, there's a partnership with the Greater Norfolk Economic Development Foundation. Master planning is right now underway. Actually, I just got the call today that we're going to get to see some preliminary concepts for how that site will lay out. And hopefully we can do that here within the next week or two. And as that's finalized, we'll keep the council updated as to how that project's moving along. Revolving loan program. This is a grant that the city did receive from the USDA. We did provide a matching funds to that, and so we have a total of $150,000 to assist small businesses and entrepreneurs in Norfolk. So this will help tremendously for some of those startup companies, Main Street businesses. There's not a lot of money with this, but a lot of these small amounts of money do help tremendously with our small businesses in Norfolk, and we certainly want to see them succeed. Countywide housing study, that is now completed, and that was a partnership we had with Madison County and the city of Madison that covered not Norfolk. There was an update to Norfolk's information, but they looked at all the communities with other communities in Madison County and also with a focus on Madison as well. So the funding for that was shared between the city, Economic Development Office, and Madison. And expansions in industrial growth, King Steel applied for and did receive site and building development funds for their expansion to help with some infrastructure. Parks and Recreation, Embrace Park restroom, you'll see is going up right now. Looks like they are probably going to wrap up before too long. Skate park restroom is up and functional. Gathering space is in planning and design right now. We are working on getting some construction done for that as we speak. So we did let that, and the bid we received was not something we can work with, so we're reevaluating that project. Johnson's Park River Restoration Project Planning, that is some design services that the City Council did approve this last year to move that project forward. And then we also have had some parks upgrades and enhancements spread out throughout the community. So as you can see, there's a lot of investment has been made in our public spaces and in our infrastructure, and I think we are all moving in a very good direction for the city, and we are, as a staff, working hard to make sure that we can accomplish the goals and continue the direction that we've set forth. Looking ahead for the next fiscal year, as far as infrastructure, we've got some street maintenance contract work for $350,000. That's mostly for some crack sealing and some areas that are badly needed in our community to keep some of that water penetration that we're seeing getting underneath our roadways. That's really just exacerbating and already some other issues we have underneath in the subgrade. Brosh Avenue reconstruction, we will see that done next year in 2020 from 1st to 5th Street. That's just over $1.6 million. Benjamin Avenue reconstruction, depending on how our design goes and where we are with that, that will dictate largely on how much construction, if any, can get done next year. So we will continue to keep the council updated on where that is. But we are anticipating some construction hopefully to take place next year. Bridge maintenance improvements for $650,000. There's a number of bridges in town that are badly in need of some work to get them up to a standard to where they need to be. Gap paving, Georgia Avenue, we're going to look at that after school gets out for this current session we're in. That'll make their life a lot easier if we don't touch that. So we are planning to finish Georgia next year to get that done during the summer. Flood control, there's 2 items related to that for recertification and repairs. As you can see, those are not small dollar amounts to get that done, but as we've all seen this last year, how important that structure is to the community. We are planning to invest in that levee to make sure that it is structurally sound. We complete any work that needs to be done for that. And we are working in partnership with the Corps of Engineers to make sure that happens. Infrastructure and new developments, just under $3 million. And then a solid waste and transfer station improvements we'll see for Scale House and some other improvements that we'll see for just over $2.6 million this next fiscal year. Water, highlight a couple items. There's an elevated storage tank that we are planning now, since we have water and sewer serving the northeast industrial area. We are planning for a elevated storage tank that we're gonna need out there for 2.3 million is the number we have budgeted for that. And a water line on Brosh Avenue for that component of the project is 300,000. For sewer, there's a number of items we have going on. Paving the south driveway at the water pollution control plant, receiving station. Don't ask me what some of these mean, because I won't be able to tell you, but we have experts here that will be able to tell you in detail what some of these are more specifically. But there is a 30-inch sewer we are replacing from 8th Street in Omaha to 4th Street and Washington. And then there's a Highway 35 interceptor, Omaha Avenue lift station and force main, and sewer main replacement on Brosh, which is that component of the Brosh reconstruction project for 300,000. Finally, there's just a few items I want to note for quality of life and quality of public services. The river restoration project, we are continuing with that. We have just under $517,000 budgeted for continued work on that. Miracle Skate Park, $544,000. River Point Square for $509,000. Park expansion projects, that's just a number of areas where we do want to increase our park footprint. There is some property that we may want to look at and expand our parks and athletic fields for that in total. Park enhancements, $170,000, and of course we're going to continue on with our investment into hike and bike trails for $562,000 for the next fiscal year. A couple items I will note to make sure that we are providing the best quality service we can. For public safety, we did implement in this presentation that the council discussed at your work sessions for the budget, a police officer retention plan, an attraction plan. As we all have seen, it's difficult to attract officers. Our number of applications has gone down significantly over the years. That's not unusual. We're definitely not unusual for communities of our size to face that same problem. So there are items in here to try to make us more competitive on that front and hopefully get our numbers up. In addition, we have included 3 new paramedic firefighter positions, which is 1 per shift, emergency operations center upgrades, and then training tower classroom and a driving simulator. One other item we are including in this budget is a restructure of our Parks and Recreation. We are creating the Department of Parks and Recreation. We're combining aquatics, we're combining parks maintenance, and all those functions into one department, overseen by 1 director position. This is more of a restructure as far as that goes. I would imagine we're going to be using existing staff, so there's no significant staff changes on that. It's really just putting everybody under the same umbrella and in the same department. We did add 2 full-time parks maintenance workers in this budget. I think that with the amount of public spaces we have in Norfolk, there is a lot of work to keep those kept up and looking nice. We are always looking at areas where we can be more efficient and try to get more done with less. But sometimes you do need those people to try to help get that work done as best we can. So we are proposing to add those into this next fiscal year's budget. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions. We have department heads here. We got Randy and Sheila both here. We can try to help answer any questions you might have or the public might have. So if there's anything else, you can let us know. We're available.
All right. Thank you, Andy. A lot of moving parts, a lot of different things involved in putting together a budget, especially in a community that's in a growth spurt like ours. I guess I had a question, just a general question on revenues. Andy, you showed a slide early on that broke down where the city depends on revenues, and obviously sales tax is the big bucket there. I get this question a lot, I think because property tax is so prevalent in our discussions. What was that percentage of city revenues dependent on property tax in terms of what our revenues are at?
For general fund revenue,
14%.
yeah, just over 14% of our total general
Okay.
fund revenue.
And so our property tax valuations have increased slightly from last year to this year. Our rates have not increased, correct?
That is
in this
correct,
budget?
Mayor, and I should have mentioned that we are not proposing a levy increase this next fiscal year. The levy will stay the same.
And it's fair to say that the sales tax revenue growth has helped us expand upon some of our city services and pursue some of these efficiencies and changes that you've described in your presentation.
Yes, our revenue position has improved because of sales tax and non-property tax growth has improved our revenue position.
So, Andy, is this PowerPoint, you're gonna put it up on the site so others will be able to?
Yeah,
I think that would be,
Yeah.
you know, I really appreciate the way this was presented here that way.
Thank
And
you.
as a point of reference, it is, I think it would be a great tool to have through, you know, when somebody contacts me about something, I can pull this, in particular, this slide on up and show it too, so if we could.
Absolutely. We can make sure this is on our website along with our other budget information.
Okay.
Andy, what is our property tax levy, and where does that put us with comparable cities of our size in Nebraska?
You know what? We used to have that chart, and I did not have that in here. I'm sorry. We used to have it, and it was a mistake. I didn't put it in here. But we are, for first-class cities, we are number 3. Randy, currently?
Yeah, it's 3 or 4. I think we were 4 and dropped to 3.
Third lowest.
Yeah.
I'll make
That's
clear
an
of
important
that.
distinction.
On the low end.
York used to be lower than us, and then last year they
Yeah.
jumped up with a higher levy rate than us, and that
I believe
moved
Kearney
us
and
down.
Scotts Bluff are the only other 2 that are lower than we are.
And our levy rate is,
About 25.5 cents total citywide levy rate.
all right, thank you.
Andy, I think if you look at 38.3% of our revenue coming from sales tax, I think it's probably wise to mention such a good relationship we have with the Visitors Bureau, because I know they drive a lot of that. They bring a lot of folks to town every year for
Oh, yeah.
different kinds of things. So glad to see
Absolutely.
that number is where it is, but
Mhm.
a nice bit of a shout out to those folks over there as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and, you know, I'll add the Chamber of Commerce into that too, and
Yeah,
the hard work our
absolutely.
businesses do to make sure that we're offering some amenities and some
Yeah.
places for people to want to come to Norfolk and frequent those businesses.
You bet. Enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Andy, the community engagement, the new website, projected timeline on that being done, you think?
It could be any time. Our goal was to have it in September. We'll see where we can meet that. As I said, there's a lot of content to get updated into there. So staff are working hard among all the other things that we're working on too to try to squeeze that in. So we're working on it. We're going to try to roll that out as soon as we can.
As far as the MPPD lease goes, 2018, 2019 fiscal, we saw a significant increase with that lease. And that's just a one-time, correct? And then we'll be dropping back down for 2019, 2020 to the,
Yes, we're budgeting, I think it's about a $70,000 increase in revenue. What caused that spike last year was they changed how they were paying us. We were being paid. Our existing lease agreement says we're paid quarterly, and it has to be paid within 2 months of the end of the fiscal year. They're trying to negotiate new agreements with all their cities, and we're working with NPPD on that ourselves. And that new agreement provides for monthly lease payments before the end of the next month. So at the end of the year, we had 2 months of additional revenue in the SOC and fund balance, and we had 2 months of additional revenue that showed up in revenues, which is what causes this big spike up here. It's about $1 million, most of which we let fall down into fund balance, and that's how we got to the GFOA. recommended minimum of 16% of operating expenditures.
Yeah, okay.
On that, Randy, are we right at 16%? Or
Yes, I mean, not exactly 16%, but it's real close.
very good. Any further questions for Andy while he's up here? Okay. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate the staff work on this. Again, I know it's a very labor-intensive process in putting together this budget, making sure that we stay on track with the mayor and council priorities and goals. But I think, as was indicated here, we are on a good trajectory and a good period of growth. I think this is a growth budget. The revenues that we've seen through sales tax receipts have indicate new economic activity, strong sales, allowing us to expand upon the services that were talked about. We are in public hearing, and so anyone wishing to make comment on any of the items related to numbers 23, 24, and 27 on the council agenda can make comment now. Hearing and seeing no one, I will move to close those hearings and move to item number 25. Look for a motion to consider resolution number 2019-45, approving the additional 1% increase in restricted fund authority allowed upon the affirmative vote of at least 75% of the council.
I'd offer for consideration Resolution 2019-45.
Second.
Motion and second. And Randy, can you give some background on this, please?
Yes, state statutes allow an additional 1% in restricted funds authority. This all has to do with the lid on what we can raise restricted funds for, which is basically tax-related items, property tax, sales tax, and including taxes we receive from the state, such as the City Highway Allocation Fund. And this doesn't change anything that we're budgeting. It just gives us flexibility in the future, because these lead laws are, I think, filled full of unintentional consequences. For instance, if your capital outlay goes down one year because you're accumulating revenues to spend the next year, that's an exception you don't have under the lid, so then you bump right up against the levy. So I always like to keep that as high as possible, not so we can raise our taxes as high as possible, but to give us flexibility when we do things like that, or interlocal agreements are an exception. So for some reason we'd leave the League Association of Risk Management, go with the private insurer, all of that would no longer be an exception. It would cause us to have lead problems. So I think this is just a flexibility type item. It requires a supermajority vote of the council to take any effect, but I recommend the council approve that additional 1% increase in restricted funds authority.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions? Discussion, council? Okay. Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2019-45 is adopted.
Item 26, would entertain a motion to consider ordinance number 5627, approving the fiscal year 2019 to 2020 appropriations, approving the fiscal year 2019-2020 proprietary budget, and approving the strategic plan.
Your Honor, I'd move for consideration of ordinance number 5627.
Motion and second. Randy, Andy, or Steve, anything else to mention?
I would just add, Mayor and Council, Randy Gates and Sheila Rios did a tremendous job, as they do every year. I know there's a whole host of other division heads that put a lot of work into this, but Randy and Sheila, we're very lucky to have them. They did a fantastic job. They always do a fantastic job of making sure that we're on a good financial course as a community and as a city. And so I think that it's good to recognize them, and I would just appreciate the opportunity to have done that. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. appreciate that. That continuity and fiscal and financial staff is very important to that performance level, so we do recognize that. And again, I would add, this budget reflects growth. I think it positions us well to expend resources necessary to meet a new standard of expectations on street construction and maintenance and infrastructure modernization. You saw all those things covered in Andy's presentation. I think it also allows us to continue to emphasize public safety, excellence, economic development and growth, and creating a quality culture of life that is unique to anywhere else in the state of Nebraska. So I think this is a sound, reasonable budget that continues a growth streak. Are there any other comments or questions, council, on the budget process? No further discussion. Short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska adopting the budget statement to be termed the annual appropriation bill, appropriating sums for necessary expenses and liabilities, adopting the proprietary budget statement, adopting the strategic plan, providing for severability, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and take effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay. With that, please vote.
All council members present, voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5627 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5627 on second and third reading.
Second?
Motion and second to suspend the rules and pass on second and third. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present, voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5627 carries on second and third.
Takes us to item number 28. We'd look for a motion to consider resolution number 2019-46, approving the property tax requests for fiscal year 2019-2020 in amounts different than fiscal year 2018-2019.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of resolution 2019-46.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Randy, anything you'd like to add here?
Yes, Your Honor. This is tweaked a little bit this year by LB 103 compared to what we've been doing since the 1990s. We've had this statute in place saying that when you change your property tax request from the amount of the prior year, that doesn't take effect unless you hold a hearing and then pass a separate resolution saying that we're actually changing that property tax request. What LB 103 did was add some information into the public hearing notice for that and add some information in the resolution for that. For instance, the public hearing notice has always had what our tax asking would be, or if we take our last year's tax asking and apply it to the new valuation, what that levy rate would be. That's now also in the resolution itself. There's added information about prior year levy, or prior year valuations and current valuations, information about what the operating budget was last year and this year, and then the percentage change on all those items. Basically, it's the same type of action item we've had to have since, I think it was in the late 1990s that they put that requirement on us. Just a little bit more information in there. And what our proposed budget does, as Andy said, was keep our levy rate the same. Since our assessed valuation went up 3.81%, allowed our property tax to go up $154,374 for the citywide property tax, the general fund, debt service fund, and economic development fund, and the vehicle parking district. Always levies their 35-cent maximum. Their valuation increased about $52,000, which let them get another $182 in property tax. So that's all this resolution is doing, is authorizing, specifically authorizing those property tax increases.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions, comments, council, on that? No discussion? Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2019-46 is adopted.
Item 29, we'll open this public hearing at the request of Target Corporation to consider a zoning change from C1 Local Business District to C3 Service Commercial District on property addressed as 1510 Market Lane. And to kick off the public hearing, Val, could you give us some background, please?
Yes, thank you. This is the lot that Target is on. Probably most people think that the mall and Target are on one lot. They're actually separate lots. Probably a year or less ago, the mall came before you all to change from C1 to C3, which is kind of a heavy commercial along the 275 bypass there. Target is asking for the same C1 to C3. They would like to do some remodeling and signage updates, and C3 allows for more signage than C1.
Okay, that explains it. Any questions for Val on that? This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to make comment can do so at this time. Okay. Seeing and hearing no one, I'd ask Beth for Planning Commission report, please.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on August 20th, 2019 at the request of Target Corporation to consider a zoning change from C1 Local Business District to C3 Service Commercial District on the property at 1510 Market Lane. The Planning Commission recommended approval on an 8-0 vote.
Okay, with that, I will close the hearing and move to item number 30. Would entertain a motion to consider ordinance number 5628, approving a zoning change from C1 to C3 on property addressed as 1510 Market Lane.
I'd offer for consideration ordinance number 5628.
Okay. Val, anything to add here? Are this request in conjunction with some planned updating and upgrades to Target, are these related or not? Or do you know?
They do have some plans to do some remodeling and signage, and so it was better for them to go from C1 to C3 for the amount of signage that is allowed.
Okay. Very good.
Val, moving that area there from, like we did with the mall, from C1 to C3, is that a better zoning designation for future development down the road in that area?
It is. Our 275 Omaha Avenue is kind of the major commercial area in town, where you would find the C3 heavy commercial. A lot of big box stores and such would go better in C3 than C1. So yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, council? Hearing no further discussion. Short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, with that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5628 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, since there is no opposition to this, and it seems it really is fitting for that area, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5628 on second and third reading.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to suspend the rules. Any further discussion? If none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5628 carries on second and third readings.
Item 31, I will open this public hearing at the request of SWAMT LLC to consider a zoning change from I-1 Light Industrial District to C3 Service Commercial District on property generally located at the southeast corner of Riverside Boulevard and West Benjamin Avenue. And Val, once again, could you give us some background to kick off this hearing, please?
Yes, thank you. Like you said, it is the southeast corner of Riverside and Benjamin. It contains 3 lots there owned by this LLC. There are buildings on there currently, and the use of those buildings fits better in C3 than I-1. And one of them has a potential for expanding, and it would not be permitted in I-1 with the change of our land use matrix here a few years ago. And so this is an old railroad corridor, so that's why it's old I-1 zoning, and what is currently there is commercial.
And Val, is it fair to say this change would conform to what the comprehensive plan would call for in this area as well?
Yes, it would call for commercial.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Seeing and hearing no one. Planning Commission report, please, Beth.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on August 20th, 2019, at the request of SWAM T LLC to consider a zoning change from I-1 light industrial to C3 service commercial on property generally located in the southeast corner of Riverside Boulevard and West Benjamin Avenue. The Planning Commission recommends approval on an 8-0 vote.
We'll close the public hearing and move to item number 32, looking for a motion to consider ordinance number 5629, approving a zoning change from I-1 to C3 on property generally located at the southeast corner of Riverside Boulevard and West Benjamin Avenue.
Your Honor, I'd move for consideration of ordinance number 5629.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any questions or discussions on this, council? Beyond
Your
the public
Honor, I'll
hearing?
be abstaining from ordinance 5629.
Your Honor, I guess this is one that has surprised me that it's taken this long for it to get to this point. For the life of me, I knew it was industrial. I remember when it was kind of changing on around that way. And for the life of me, I just can't figure out why it took this long, so.
Well, be a good one to get changed over.
I guess I'd like to see this start with all the discussion we've had on that area, particular location up that corridor, that maybe this will incentivize, or however you want to say it, to get the rest of the businesses up there to get their land changed to C3 or C1, just something instead of the industrial, because we still don't know what could end up in certain places because of
Sure.
that.
Yeah. Potentially this sets a pattern that we'd like to see continue. Okay. Any other questions or comments, council? If not, short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Councilmember Clausen abstaining. Ordinance 5629 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass on second and third.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second to suspend the rules and pass on second and third readings. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Councilmember Clausen abstaining. Ordinance 5629 carries on second and third.
Item 33, I will open this public hearing at the request of the City of Norfolk to consider hard surfacing waiver on property generally located 1.5 miles east of Victory Road and Northeast Industrial Highway for a proposed water tower. And to open this public hearing and provide background, Steve Ramus, please.
Mayor and Council, as part of our infrastructure expansion and improvements, it is necessary to construct a water tower north of Industrial Highway, about a half a mile east of Victory Road. The general landmark out in that area is going to be the overhead high voltage power line. We are directly west of that, about 150 feet, and we sit about 250 feet north of Industrial Highway, or the edge of Industrial Highway. We are requesting a hard surfacing waiver beyond 100 feet. So we are proposing that we would pave that out to 100 feet off of Industrial Highway. That gets us about 55 feet north of the right-of-way. It's about another about another 120 feet up to the fenced compound that the water tower would be inside.
Hey, Steve, any questions? Comments, council? Okay.
Do I have someone to speak in favor of this?
The floor is yours, Councilman.
It's just kind of funny to see us asking for a waiver when it's kind of had caused a little heartburn a couple years ago in the community, so. With people requesting waivers for paving waivers, just coming across here is interesting.
The rules apply to everyone. And you have to follow the process the same way. It is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment at this time can do so. Okay. Seeing and hearing no one, I'll close the hearing and move to item number 34. Look for a motion to consider resolution number 2019-47, approving a hard surfacing waiver for the city of Norfolk on property generally located 1.5 miles east of Victory Road and Northeast Industrial Highway for proposed water tower.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of resolution 2019-47.
Second?
Motion and second. Any further discussion, council, questions? Comments? If none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2019-47 is adopted.
Takes us to our regular agenda. Item number 35. Look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5630, approving the fiscal year 2019-2020 classification and pay plan.
Your Honor, I'd move for consideration of ordinance number 5630.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second. And Randy, could you give us some background on this, please?
Yes, this ordinance simply approves the pay plan that's included in the budget that you approved earlier tonight, and has a 2.5% cost of living adjustment and all the other items that Andy talked about related to personnel. So this is kind of a follow-on item to the budget.
Primarily authorizing the COLA, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
has a 2.5% COLA on it.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions on this, council? Hearing none, short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, classifying the employees of the city, fixing the ranges of compensation of such employees, providing a pay range, repealing ordinance number 5569, providing for publication in this ordinance in pamphlet form, and when the ordinance shall take effect.
Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5630 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass this ordinance on second and third reading.
Second?
Motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5630 carries on second and third.
And item number 36, would entertain a motion to consider ordinance number 5631, amending section 2-5 of the city code to update ambulance fees, building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing permit fees, tire disposal fees, curb grinding fees, building moving fees, subdivision fees, water and wastewater treatment rates, to include a stormwater fee, and to include an appeal fee for violation of Chapter 26, Article 14, Stormwater System. This ordinance has an operative date of October 1st, 2019.
I'd offer for consideration ordinance number 5631.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. And who gets to tell us about all of these fees? Is that, who's up first? Dennis? Val? Val, you want to kick us off? Randy? Okay.
Right,
I'm
let
sorry.
me kind of introduce this, and if you got questions about specific revenues in there, somebody like Val could talk about their portion of it. This is almost another thing like the pay plan. These fee increases are in the budget you just approved. Some of the bigger ones are the 2% water and sewer rate increases that are in the budget. The storm sewer fee that creates that new stormwater utility, which is $1 per month for residential and $3 per month for commercial utility customers. And that fee is expected to raise about $150,000 annually to help us comply with the federally mandated stormwater regs. Ambulance fee increases are in there. We haven't increased those for 6 years. Hastings does a survey of other larger Nebraska cities, and we try to keep about, well, usually slightly below the average of those cities for ambulance fees. In 6 years, that we got to the point where we need to adjust those fees up to stay just under the midpoint of those. And then there's other smaller fee increases in there, as you'd mentioned, some of Val's fees and those types of things. So that's what this ordinance is doing, and if you have specific questions, as I said, somebody here from the utility funds or Val can probably answer those as good or better than I can.
Okay, thank you, Andy. I know when we look at these, we're always looking at what other communities are charging for some of these fees. And Val, maybe you can help me out here. Typically, our adjustments like these bring us somewhere in the middle of the pack. Is that right? I mean, we're not a whole lot lower or not a whole lot higher than anybody else. That's, I mean, we try to strike a balance there. Is that a fair statement?
For building permit fees and such, yes, we are on the lower side of that still, even with this increase. But you're right, on particularly minimum fees, we went up from $25 to $30 for a minimum fee. That's in line with what other first-class cities that we looked at, or even lower than other first-class cities. So we do try to keep them reasonable.
Okay. Any questions or comments, council, on any of these?
So Val, just to refresh my memory a little bit on the stormwater fee, that I believe in years past was federally funded?
Steve would probably be a better
Steve, is
one
that
to
correct?
answer that.
That's correct. We've been receiving some grant dollars for about the last 4, maybe 5 years. Those grant dollars were really designated to help us figure out as a state and as communities, Class 1 cities, how did we want to move forward with compliance with the federal regulations. Most cities have headed down a path of a stormwater utility fee. This year, I think, I don't remember the exact number, I think we had $3,800 in grant dollars left over that we rolled over into the stormwater fee.
Still federally mandated to do, but we get to pay for it.
Federally mandated project, yeah, or requirement.
grants have
we
gone
pay
away.
for it.
Yes, the grants have gone away, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, where was the discussion held for the fee increase? Did I miss that meeting? I mean, was that during the budget reading, the initial meetings we had?
Yes, that was. When we talked, we had the rate increase change.
Yeah. First meeting?
He missed the first.
Okay, then must have been the one I was.
Budget reviews.
Yeah, the first one, yeah, okay.
I'd be happy to review the
So-
water and sewer.
For
Forgot
public
if we-
record, what the councilman is referring to would budget review
Yeah,
sessions
budget review
that begin
sessions.
the budget process for the city internally, and those are public review sessions.
Correct, okay.
Any other questions? Okay. If not, short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 2-5 of the official city code to update ambulance fees, building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing permit fees, tire disposal fees, curb grinding costs, building moving fees, subdivision fees, water and wastewater treatment rates, to include a stormwater fee, to include an appeal fee for a violation of Chapter 26, Article 4 Stormwater System, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, with that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5631 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass this ordinance on second and third.
Second that, Your Honor.
Okay, motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. Any further discussion? If none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5631 carries on second and third.
And that concludes this meeting of the Norfolk City Council. We are adjourned. Good evening.
Right?